Someone won a race today. A really good driver won a race today at some racetrack with some thousands of fans cheering on. But we're here on the Inside Line F1 podcast on the Italian GP review talking about the McLarens, about Oscar, about Lando, about the swap around, about Max Verstappen winning, but questioning whether the Italian GP was a race at all. Was it, Kunal?
Oh, yeah, it was a fantastic race. Hundreds and thousands of the Tifosi there. Probably disappointed at how slow the Ferrari was because that's not the point, though, right?
That's not the point at all.
Yeah, I think. Tell me the last time you enjoyed Max Verstappen actually dominating a race, Soumil.
Ooh, Suzuka doesn't count, doesn't it? Because he didn't technically dominate that one.
20
I
seconds ahead of McLaren's.
That was amazing. That is amazing. Actually, you know what? Let's just. Do you want to take a minute to wrap Max Verstappen up and then go to the elephant in the room, or do we address it first? I think there is an elephant in your room too. It's in the background of your frame.
It
It's an
is
orange and black color elephant.
that it is. Yes, it is Oscar Piastri.
Where do we go? I think let's take a minute to just acknowledge how good everything has been from Max Verstappen, because on a race weekend where Max Verstappen has won in, let's be honest, the second best car of the year by 20 seconds. The big talking point still remains the McLaren, which tells you how good Max Verstappen has been. The fact that he's so good that we don't even want to talk about him. 20 seconds. Even George Russell complimented him, Kunal. He was just perfect. I said on the broadcast, he's cornered McLaren into making a weird decision. That is the pit stop on the softs. They had no choice but to do what Max was not doing because they had to beat him.
Because typically that's what Max would have done. He would have done the opposite of McLaren's. But I'll tell you what, there's one thing I have a different view on, which is that Red Bull was the second fastest car. No, in Monza this weekend, it was the fastest car. And 2 points. First is, if you remember, and we spoke about this in the preview, Red Bull has never prioritized Monza. They've never had a low spec wing. They've always treated it as an outlier, as it's always been, right? But this weekend, Red Bull was the quickest car.
This weekend, yeah.
This weekend, yes, I say that this weekend. And despite the heat, they were able to control the McLarens. And I'm just going to touch upon I said this on the Wireplay broadcast. So why is suddenly Red Bull the quickest car? Very simple way to sort of explain it is in Monza, as we've been speaking, low downforce. So you're throwing downforce of the car. So you're bringing front rear downforce of the car, right? But you still need aero efficiency with lower downforce. And that Red Bull was actually the most efficient car through the downforce. And McLaren, of course, made different setup choices. Red Bull went for higher straight line speed. McLaren took some more wing to be faster in the corners, and different cars, like we've been saying, extract lap time differently. So Red Bull was the fastest car this weekend. It showed yesterday, and it showed today even more so. Everyone thought McLaren's going to overtake. Lando made the overtake. He's going to go for it. But no, he didn't.
No, not at all. And Max was amazing. That qualifying lap, he was dancing around. Just seeing the way he was rotating the car so perfectly. That Red Bull was not as good at rotation. It used to be too erratic at times. But then seeing him trundle along, especially turn one, to seeing how balanced he was, that eventually put him in the right position where he was able to break away from the train. And then his driving was genius. Yes, he was under pressure. Yes, he had to let Lando go at the start, but he made sure it was just easy meat to pass him. And hence, Verstappen is now the most successful Red Bull racing driver of all time across stats. Poles, wins, fastest laps. I mean, every metric you could find. That's what F1 Stats Gurus put out. Yeah,
66 race wins is what he's had, his third of the season. And you mentioned he let Lando through, which was again a very different Max Verstappen. Firstly, he did not uh, debate this with the Red Bull pit wall. Typically, as he would just read out the rule book and be like, "Goodness me, what are you guys thinking?" But that's also his maturity, because he realized, I have the car under me. Let him go. I will get him. I'll pass him, and I'll then pull away. And I think also lower tire degradation in general across the field helped, because Esteban Ocon was literally saying, "Why don't we just run all the way to the last lap and pit on the last lap?" Of course, he was on the hard at that time, but yeah, all in all, fantastic. I loved the Red Bull, Max Verstappen, not Red Bull, but Max Verstappen domination. And I loved how he actually made a race out of it for himself. for McLaren's. He forced McLaren's hand in many ways and made them give up.
Yeah, exactly. Let's also take a second to acknowledge Laurent Mekies, and this being his first race win as Red Bull Racing Team principal. It's a big job, it's a big responsibility. Yes, a lot of it has come down to the driver and how excellent he was on Saturday and Sunday, but let's not discredit the efforts of the team as well. They were so good to the point that they were gossiping about another team making a strategic change. They were gossiping in the middle of the race. What were they gossiping about, Kunal? Should we be joining in on that gossip too at last? The McLaren gossip.
We should, because they said it's none of our business, but it is our business on the
It
Inside Line
is.
F1 podcast. We should gossip about it. And you mentioned Laurent Mekies again. Red Bull actually, if we were to believe all the paddock stories coming out, Max was the one who said, "I want to go for the lower downforce wing." That's why after the pole position, he said, "Relax, Pierre," because Pierre Vache, who is their chief technical officer, probably didn't want to go down that road. So that's what he was trying to say at that time. My daughter's here because she's really excited about the Max Verstappen
Oh,
win
there she
as
is.
well. Even though she knows that we are live, she's like, I have to celebrate this win as it comes. But we need to spend the next 14 minutes, since we've given a timeline of 20 minutes on this episode, discussing what the hell just McLaren did. Soumil, how did you see it?
In my opinion, what McLaren did was what they have been saying they would do. They wanted to make things fair, which means they want to negate the. Oh, look, Antara's actually taking the McLaren show car. She wants the McLaren at the back.
She does, and that's
What a
the
moment.
McLaren Lego from our dear friends at Fan Code, Somal, where you and I were on the Hindi broadcast as well. So she's just showing it off. It's Lando Norris, the guy who was actually done wrong with today. I know you were going for your answer. Why don't we just hear you?
Now, I want to know why Antara wants the McLaren because it clearly wasn't the winning car, which means she likes papaya. Very clear.
She and her mother love the papaya as a fruit, but yeah. Okay, go for it.
Yeah, but so McLaren said that they want to negate the external effects that could happen in a race. That's what McLaren want to do. They want to ensure that they have maximum points A and maximum harmony B in the team. Today, they valued their promise a lot more than what happened on track. Their promise to Lando was you won't be undercut by Oscar. Eventually, they made a slow pit stop and they did what we in Hindi call bharpai. They made up for it by making sure that Oscar was advised to give Lando the position back. Now, is it Oscar's fault that they made a slow pit stop? No. Is he the one suffering as a result? Yes. But in the grand scheme of things, the way I see it, would McLaren do the exact same thing for Oscar if something like that would have happened to him? Yes, I do think so as well. Which makes me feel it might be on the borderline of what we Formula One fans like in terms of races being controlled, but I think it's fair. I think it's absolutely fair. McLaren committed to something and they just did what they had to, just like Hungary last year.
Well, would it have been fair if it was a 15-second stop and they would have told Lando, you need to, or sorry, they would have told Oscar, wait, you still need to get Lando ahead. So let's put things into perspective.
Yeah, I
Them,
think
them, them
context matters a lot, doesn't it, Kunal? Like
it does. So
circumstances
let's
and
let's add that context. Them protecting the undercut for Leclerc, for Oscar, for Lando, that's absolutely fine. All teams do that. But to what level would they have protected it? Is my question, right? Would they have protected it all the way till they knew that they wouldn't be risking another podium position loss to Leclerc?
hmm,
Maybe that's the level they were willing to go at. Because what if it was a 15-second stop? What does the flow chart say? 5-second stop, no pressure from Leclerc. 8-second stop, no pressure from Leclerc. 12-second stop, no pressure from Leclerc. What do I mean by that? Is if it was still a 12-second stop for Lando, would they have still said, Oscar, you need to give that position back? And then imagine Oscar would have been 3/4 of the lap ahead, driving slowly just to let Lando through, right? And my problem with this is, we're trying to control, McLaren's trying to control fate, right? What's next? I mean, just because Lando had a DNF in some food, is McLaren going to engineer a DNF for Oscar? I'm not saying they will, but I'm trying to say, where do they draw the line? If for some reason Lando puts it in the wall, will they tell Oscar, it's only fair you also put it in the wall? It's okay, choose another part of the wall. There is 5 kilometers of the circuit elsewhere. So my point is, this is Yes, you need to be fair, but when circumstances are fair, it's just bad luck that he had a slow stop. That's racing, like Max was laughing on the radio.
Let's also get your opinions in. Fayanshu, Pratik, Sarika. I know the three of you are here. I know lots of you have also joined otherwise, but are not commenting. So here's your chance to share your opinion because everybody has an opinion on this. Like, in spite of, even if you say I don't have an opinion, you do have an opinion about it, which is what I'm doing. My opinion is I don't have an opinion about it because I don't think it was necessarily wrong on the day. Well, about the precedent it sets, that you're right about, Kunal, because you're right. Where do you then draw the line? About a slow pit stop eventually making things weird for McLaren. I suppose it's all down to context and where they were. Maybe if they had threats for someone else, maybe if Leclerc was closer, as you mentioned, maybe if fighting against Max was a genuine threat, that is something I would have loved to see. Like, what if Max was genuinely reachable? And what if then it just so happened that Piastri was ahead of Lando? Would they have even then lost time in trying to switch around the places? Just be like, hey, let's go and get a win because that's the most important thing. And that's what kind of stings to me. Like what's up here with McLaren? Where do they draw the line in that case?
Where do they draw the line? And I'm going to put up some reactions. Fianshu saying the World Drivers' Championship fight is too cute. Oscar letting him go. Norris caring about Oscar getting undercut. That's true. Uh, Chinonso saying that was funny. It was wrong. McLaren are trying to play God. Oh my God. Uh, I
Well, I suppose they can if their car is as fast as God right now, isn't it? Like they can
is
if they've
it
got
today? It
over
wasn't.
200. But if they've got so many points in their back, if they've got such a big leeway, I suppose losing out on one result doesn't. And this is also something, right? Another observation, like around before they made their pit stops, around the time where the window for the hards was open and McLaren chose to go for the softs. Theoretically, theoretically, if it was a very unfair team, if it was say Ferrari from the mid 2000s, they could have sacrificed one driver to hold Max up so that the other could have gone and taken a race win. They could have. In a less fair team, they could have. Which, in my head, spins a second narrative is that McLaren have sort of let go of a race win just so that they can protect that harmony between the teams. And then that harmony has unraveled because they made a mistake in the pit stops.
Only thing is, I don't believe they didn't have the pace to win today. Period. The way Max overtook Lando and then pulled that gap and then stuck to that gap. That was it. That was race over. They
Yeah.
didn't have anything on strategy. And I always say this: strategy wins when you actually have a quick car. When you have a quick car which is unable, or on par. I don't think any car was par to do that, right? And McLaren are very lucky that they don't have competition in both championships. In the drivers' championship, it's just the two drivers. In the constructors' championship, well, both their drivers actually have more points than Ferrari in second place. So they're able to play God, like Chinonso said, right?
It's a
But
lovely
but but
comment.
but I'm gonna put it the other way. What do other drivers feel going in racing for McLaren? Would a Max
Yeah.
Verstappen, if he ever speaks to McLaren, his first point would be, I'm number one. I'm the one who's delivering championships to you. And you know what? That does come handy when you actually have a rival car competing with you, when the driver actually makes the difference. At the moment, it's just all too very easy for the McLaren drivers. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to take anything away on how difficult it is to put the car on pole or in the top three every single race and then go ahead and win and so on. I don't mean What I mean is there is no external competition. If this was
But that's the you're right. That's the
2021,
engineers doing their lovely work. That's not the drivers.
yeah, it's the engineers doing the work. Yes, and if this was 2021, what would McLaren have done?
Hell, if it is
Yeah,
yeah. If this was exactly if this was 20 well, actually, you know what? This is very interesting. Let's get some reactions and let's compare this to previous seasons to see how other teams have settled championships like this. And the one thing that comes to mind is Mercedes from 2014 till 2016. In that case, Kunal, they also had an extraordinary lead over all the other teams in 2014. In that case, they could have also won every race just by chilling. But over there, they let their drivers fight, and there was no sort of manipulation to make sure that there's a good environment. How do you see this? I think on the day it's right, but it's opened up a big gray area, right? Like, what happens the next time? Like,
And how grave can a substandard race be, where, like I said, if I'm worried now. I mean, I'm saying this sarcastically if it comes across, but is there an Oscar Piastri DNF incoming? Because we've got to be fair to both the drivers. Right. Chinonso is saying, I don't need to apologize. Thank you. Because I get trolled all the time. Not that I care. Uh, Chinonso is also saying it's the worst title fight between drivers. And I'll tell you
I
where
agree.
okay, I'll put it this way. I'm not rating good, bad, worst thing. But both drivers are so compliant, right? Which is now where my mind goes back to Oscar Piastri in Silverstone. What did he ask for? Right? He said, if you guys believe that the race control was too harsh on my penalty during the restart, right, we should swap positions and let's fight again. McLaren should have paid heed to that. Again, it wasn't his mistake. If you technically go back to it, it
Mm.
was suddenly a new ruling or a new way of looking by the race stewards. My point is, how much can you control all of this? And this is
Boy.
not a Hungary situation last year, Soumil,
Do,
because
do,
Hungary,
do,
both cars were 100% fit to finish the race in the way they did. Here, Lando just had a slow stop. That's racing. You've got to accept it as a team, as a driver.
but
And
the promise, like how much they value the promise that they've made to their drivers,
what
the
problem?
word.
But to what extent, Soumil? It's like if your parents say, Soumil, I'm going to get you a Mercedes Benz car when you're 25, right? But circumstances are such that they can't. Do you still keep up to the word? I
But
mean,
who says they can't? Because McLaren could, and they did.
McLaren could and they did, but my point is
But
the
my,
floor chart. The floor
I've got
chart.
to bring in another argument to this.
Go for it.
Aren't the drivers employees of a racing team? And
Yes, they
employees are
are.
meant to be doing what the team tells them to do. They could choose not to. They could choose not to, and hence they could choose to leave the team. Excuse me. Or if they really feel bad about it, they could leave. And then it sets up another problem for the next set of people to join in to see if they want to follow the same precedence. But aren't they employees? We're supposed to follow what the team's orders are.
I mean, they're not technically employees, they're contractors. They're bound by certain, of course, that's an extension of an employee as well. But
Yeah.
uh, Max Verstappen, would he have listened? Lewis Hamilton, Fernando
Yeah.
Alonso, would they have listened? Right? So, I mean, what I know I'm being very aggressive about it, and I know that also came out from a lot of comments on Viaplay, but I'm just trying to say this is not how I would love to go racing in Formula One. Yes, be fair. Yes, protect the undercut. But if your pit stop is wrong, it's slow. That's just
Just
fate.
what it is. Yeah.
I'm serious. What's next? Frankfurt DNF for Lando Norris. Why didn't they just ask Oscar to park his car up, saying, "Oops, sorry, man, we shouldn't have had that oil leak." And Lando Norris said it was fine. Oscar Piastri said it was fine. Andrea Stella went on this long PR answer why it was fine. Of course, they're going to tell you that. I wait for Oscar Piastri's biography or whatever comes to actually tell us what he felt like.
I suppose this is also a situation where you've got to be
Thank you.
smart as a driver and play the political game. Because if you
Yeah,
frame it as something you've done for the team has to do something back for you. You've
yeah,
got to keep the door open.
publicly, absolutely. I mean, I hope in the debrief, Mark Webber. I mean, I'll tell you who Oscar Piastri should take to the debrief. Jos Verstappen. That's when
Yes.
Jos Verstappen would have blown his lid before Max could have. Okay, so taking Mark Webber, is probably good. That's what he would do. Okay. But anyway, we should move on. 20 minutes in, 3 minutes to
Should we
end the
move on
episode.
though? I'm
Yeah.
I'm I'm in the space where I still see everything else is, to be honest with you, a little irrelevant. Like it's just very clear. Carlos Sainz questioning why he wasn't on that longer strategy that Alex Albon was put on. Sure, but it doesn't matter as much. Kimi Antonelli getting points. Sure, but it doesn't matter as much. Also, a lot of drivers just having a terrible undercut, like Bortoleto and Sonoda, and then that costing them a lot. Sure, but does it matter as much as this does? I want to go through a few of the comments. And I know I'm kind of acting like an auntie who still wants to pick the bones out of every single argument and get into the details and figure out precedents and everything. But I just wonder, would Mercedes from 2014 have done the same thing? Was there any circumstance where they had to? I don't think
Well, Lewis had an engine failure, and 2016
that cost him a title.
that cost him the title.
We-
Yeah.
We're fine. We're fine with it now because he won. Well, he won seven, but well, okay. Comments. Everyone's been very animated about this, and we love that. Praveen Rajashekharan, thank you so much, Praveen. First time I've seen your comment here, so very, very glad to have you. At first, I thought the slow pit stop for Lando is part of racing, but McLaren had a chance to put it right because they are in a position to do so with their dominant car and two good drivers. That's what Kunal's saying. What if they are not? Does that make it trickier for you to attract talent in the future, or do you think it will still be fine? Because you might not get a Max, but what if McLaren are able to uncover the next Max and they have to join McLaren because where else do you go? They've got such a good engineering department.
Well, it's all conjecture. We don't know what 2026 is going to look like, right? And let's assume that you actually need a driver talent to make the difference. Could this be one of the reasons why the driver's like, you know what? It's what happened to Valentino Rossi. You should read his book. What if I had never tried it? Okay, or Lance Armstrong when they say it's not about the bike, right? Uh, it's all down to yes, there is engineering brilliance, but when others are as brilliant as you and the driver makes a difference as we are seeing Max make that difference is when McLaren shouldn't be wanting to miss out on hiring a Max because team comes first. Yes, it's the team, but
Well,
such
if you don't
days,
like it, don't join that team, I suppose.
or you join the team and force the team to make a choice. That's what a driver like Max Verstappen would do. That's why Michael Schumachers of the world in the past have said, I need number one status in the driver contract.
So actually, you know what? This is becoming a broader chat, guys. I love the comments. Fayansh is saying, apart from today, McLaren pit crew let their drivers think too much with questions during a race, making a decision either they follow or they don't. Well, again, in a less fair team, that's what would happen. Like this is what we're doing, follow it, and like I wouldn't even say less fair. In a more autocratic team, perhaps like Mercedes, we also heard, wasn't it Russell being unhappy with the run plan yesterday in qualifying? And
Yeah.
Mercedes were like, this is the optimal solution. We are just going to go ahead with this. It's got the many titles in the past. It's just a way of doing things. What do you think of this McLaren way of doing things, Kunal? Because what we are seeing today, the action of today, is just a tip of the iceberg. That is the McLaren culture and their way of operating, isn't it? It's a small action, it's a decision that represents the way they look at the team. Do you think a Formula One team can have this sort of a culture, or whatever you'd like to term it, or whatever you'd like to frame it as?
Yeah, that's Antara saying it's time to go have dinner. But she runs the team at home, as you can see that, right? She's monitoring everything we're doing extremely well. I don't know if you guys can see her, but anyway, she's right here. She's made sure all the F1 wares at home are on display on the what do you call it, the parapet here. But no, I think culturally McLaren has always been different, as we remember from the Matrix style management of Ron Dennis. Now this is the Andrea Stella, Zach Brown way of running the team. And do you think McLaren is favoring Lando Norris in any way, Soumil?
I love that we're having a negotiation in the middle of the episode. I
Yeah.
think it's all right, Kunal. I think people can hear it. It's all chill.
Yeah, she's saying it's time for dinner. Anyway, we can take this up when we. With my question, do you think McLaren is favoring Lando Norris?
No,
They gave
they're
him a
not.
tow. They told Oscar to give him a tow yesterday to help him get to Q3.
Well, that might be a bit of an isolated one. I don't know if I mean Oscar's not put him in himself in a situation where he needs to be favored, if you know what I mean. It's just what I'm saying. It's just comments. Apart from having a fast car, McLaren is lucky to have Oscar and Lando as the driver because if this was a Max or Lewis, it would have been a different case scenario. Well, I'm not. I don't think they're lucky, Kunal. I think they have created their own luck, haven't they? Because they scouted both drivers from a very young age. Comparatively,
What?
no,
Oscar was pulled away from Alpine. They were
but
lucky
no,
they could get him.
they weren't lucky. They made their luck because they got a driver before he was world champion material. They invested in their journey. They made sure that they could mold him to
Not from
fit
a
the team
young age. What I
structure.
mean is, yes, they gave him his break in F1, but Alpine put all the money to, not all, but
Yeah, I mean
parts of the
earlier.
money.
I mean in
Yeah,
an earlier stage of their career, not like a ready-made world champion like a Lewis or a Max. Like if you have a driver that you get at the start of their journey, you can mold them into being a driver that mentally, at least, if not skill-wise, can behave a way you want them to behave, which I
correct.
think is what they have done. So I don't think they're lucky. They created this. I don't think they're lucky at all.
In Formula One, yes, they gave Oscar the break. Yes, they gave him the machinery to help him win what could be his first world championship. No doubt about that. Okay. Uh, as with Norris, they've persevered, they've helped him. And maybe that's why they feel that the championship should first come to Norris before it goes to Oscar.
Do you think they
Uh,
feel that way?
I mean, I'll tell you what, they came up, they're trying to be fair with both drivers, which is fine. But today was just crossing that limit. When I see, that's my confusion is to what level will they be willing to take substandard pit work or substandard? I mean, to what level do you control racing results? Today they control the racing result. We
Yeah.
we look at Flavio Briatore for crashing, for having crash gate and fixing a race. This is fixing a podium result. Public eye view saying, "Can you let him go?" Imagine if this was for the lead of the race, they would have still done it.
That's a good one. I'm not sure my yeah, I'm not sure my opinion on that would have been the same though. Now you're just making excuse for McLaren. Red Bull got Max at a young age, but he's different. Well, the entourage matters too. The entourage matters too. Like
Yes,
if
but
if
now
you
we've got to end because there's a hungry daughter here who wants to hear all about this because she's heard about it from me just when we came. So we will have another episode. We will have several shorts and reels coming up in the week ahead. I have to bail.
you have to go. You need to tell us what Antara feels about it, though. We need to know how she's processing all of this because she's going to be like a first generation Formula One fan, like young. How does she perceive something like this in her moral compass? Is this right? Is this not? I'd love to have that chat. But for now, thank you for watching, folks. Time to take a time out. Let us know what your opinions are. I love the comments. Feyanchu, Chinonzo, everybody.
Thank you.
Autura says, yes, too many cues for the McLaren driver, Exhibit A, Sochi 21. Love all of these, but subscribe to the Inside Line F1 podcast. We'll let Kunal go for now, and we'll catch you shortly. Subscribe to the channel, lots of short content coming up as well. Take care.